Linke uns so gut wie bald wahrnimmt weltweit und auch, dass andere soziale Bewegungen uns nicht wahrnehmen und dass wir die Schwierigkeit haben, in diese sozialen Bewegungen reinzubrechen oder integriert zu werden. Was hast du für Vorschläge? Denn ich denke mal, es wäre wichtig, von dir einige Tipps in dieser Richtung zu bekommen.
Well, first of all, by the left, what do we mean? We mean not just Marxists, Leninists, Trotskyists, and anarchists, but the social progressive movement in general. Civil rights, feminism, gay and lesbian, etc. I mean a really broad term by the left. So just to give you some vision, can you imagine if these groups came together? Because the Marxists are as small and marginalized as we are. But all these progressive groups who are humanists and not vegans, if we could come together, imagine the numbers and power we could have. Now, we must begin at a very basic level. I'll give you two ideas. First, we must initiate a dialogue and have conferences with people from all of these groups. People who will be open-minded enough to hear us, and we must be open-minded enough to hear them. They can teach us so much about social oppression that we don't know as well as they do, and we can teach them so much about respect for life and ecology that they have no idea about. Here's another idea. It's very simple. I think it's very profound. Community gardening. We go where people have needs, poor people, people of color, working families. We find land, we grow organic vegetables and fruit. We literally plant the seeds of change by working with other communities in a project that benefits all and that teaches veganism by practice, not by dogma or preaching. We talk about the evils of agribusiness. We talk about how Monsanto owns seeds. We talk about the importance of organic produce. And we talk about the importance of working together in our communities to bring about change. And we go to them. We don't go to them with a pamphlet. Hey, brother, have you found vegan? Do you have vegan in your heart? No. We go there and we say, how can we help you? We go there and we say, we would like to do a project together. Let us build a community garden. Then you gain trust. You never approach someone and say, let me help you. Let's work together. It doesn't work that way. I found that through experience. You do a project, you build trust, you form alliances, you become a community. So imagine if we could start community gardening projects all over the world. People would come together, we would grow our own vegetables and fruit, we would raise vegans exponentially, and we would form alliance politics, so to speak, organically. Two very simple ideas, two ideas that we are not even thinking about.
First, I would speak in English, and I've got two questions. The first question would be, where could we such an international platform for all these groups, all these vegan groups? And the second question is, in the US is existing a Senate Bill 510 that forbids to grow home food, or forbids farmers to get bigger. Did you hear about this?
No. That's a good idea, good question. We could certainly do the internet, but there's no, and we are all over the internet and still having very little change. Because even on the internet, we mostly talk to each other. And I'm not sure we know how to use the internet. But you cannot replace face-to-face work in your neighborhood. So somehow these two could complement each other. Like we use the internet to organize, the internet was used to organize the Battle of Seattle in 1999. It was used to bring the world together to converge on Seattle and attack the WTO. There's an example of using the internet and real interactions that are indispensable. Yes, a combination. For instance, our vegan pamphlets, when we give out vegan pamphlets, they need to emphasize the affordability of veganism. If we're going to go into communities of families, people of color, and the working class poor, they need to see that veganism is cheap, because meat is subsidized and very cheap. They want to see it's affordable. So when we say you can buy this vegan cream for 10 euros, they're going to say, please, you elitist, get out of my way.
My second question was, in the US existing a Senate Bill 510 that makes it not possible to grow your own food in larger areas. And this is a big danger in my eyes.
They actually have tried to pass some laws against community gardening and these kind of things. You can see that there must be something subversive to this. And they have tried to pass laws against any kind of autonomous activity or any kind of dissent in the U.S. whatsoever. The U.S. is very much a police state. So it's not surprising they would try to stop something like community gardening because it is empowering. But this is not a widespread law yet. This is not set in stone. Yeah, the possibilities are very great still for this. The difficulty is finding organic seeds or seeds not owned by Monsanto.
Silvio, wir wissen, dass du in Europa in der nächsten Zeit in einigen Ländern noch bist. Wie siehst du die Tierrechtsbewegung innerhalb dieser Länder? Welche Fehler machen sie? Und auf welchem Level, auf welchem Standpunkt oder auf welchem Stand sind diese Tierrechtsbewegungen innerhalb dieser europäischen Länder, die du bereist? Und welche Sicht hast du aus Amerika? Welche Vergleiche kannst du noch ziehen? Und ja, welche Straßen?
Everywhere I go, I see that the animal rights movement or the animal liberation movement is single issue. And therefore they fight for animals and animals only. I understand that because the plight of animals, number one, is so serious. And number two, anytime we try to work with the social progressives or the left, they try to take over our agenda. There are websites or books or essays that will make the connections in theory. No one does it in practice. The best example I can think of what I've talked about so far is a group on the internet called the Food Empowerment Project. If you go online and you look up the Food Empowerment Project, you will see a website that has a big picture where veganism is very much in the center, but also we talk about human needs and poverty and hunger and the environment. So everywhere I go, I see single-issue animal rights groups. The difference I see is in the degree of tactics, whether there is more pacifism or more militant direct action. And in most groups, in most countries, are passive, above ground, and legal. And there is a place for that, and I'm not criticizing that. However, I'm tired of hearing the above ground criticize the underground. We need an underground liberation movement that breaks laws and breaks into laboratories to free animals. We need that. The Animal Liberation Front is 30 years old. It continues to spread globally. It is now in over 30 countries, including Mexico. Now, the most militant and serious movement I have seen is in England. And so therefore, it is no accident that all of my friends in England are in jail. And it is no accident that I can never again go to England or the UK. Because in England, they learned how to be effective. This is not effective. Holding up signs is not effective. Have you ever seen the movie Behind the Mask? There is a scene in that movie, if you recall. There was a breeder. A call was put out to go to that breeder and take that building down brick by brick and get every animal out. 80 people showed up. They smashed the windows. They smashed the doors. They took out every animal. Men, women, children, grandmothers. That is action. That is saving animals. That is the boldness that this movement lacks universally. Now, let me be fair here. The movement in England is in a serious crisis because they have taken it to such a level. And the state repression is very fierce. So when the state comes after you with a jail sentence or knocks on your door, you know you're on the right path. So if this is a war and you are fighting a battle and the battle gets tough, you don't run away. You fight harder. You fight through it. We have to fight through state repression. We are going to get state repression. We may go to jail. We have to be prepared to deal with that and come out and fight again. We don't back down and say, we're doing something wrong, here come the police. No, we're doing something right.
Erstmal, ich habe zwei Fragen und eine Anmerkung. Also die erste Anmerkung, die ich machen will, dass ich finde den Holocaust-Vergleich ein bisschen blöd hier und ich weiß nicht, also ich finde nicht, dass wir im Holocaust leben, gerade im Moment. Naja, vielleicht ist es auch nicht, vielleicht seht ihr das ja anders. Okay, meine zwei Fragen sind, du hast die ganze Zeit vom Feind gesprochen und meine Frage ist, wer ist denn wirklich dieser Feind, den wir da bekämpfen müssen? Und die zweite Frage ist, hier wird die ganze Zeit über das Gefängnis geredet und ich wollte dich mal persönlich fragen, warst du schon mal im Gefängnis? Also...
I've been to jail, but for the wrong reasons. I've been to jail as a youth for being a troubled youth. I've been to jail for civil disobedience, but not for very long. So I am not Rod Coronado, and I am not a warrior. I do not fear jail. I am prepared to go at any time for whatever I say or do. It could not be any worse than my current existence. What I do, and I am the only university professor in the United States who will take a hardline position. And if Martin Luther King can risk his life, I can risk my job. My life is not at stake. I'm not afraid for my life because we are not at this level of struggle in the 1960s that black Americans were at. I am not brave. You want to know bravery? The freedom fighters in the 1950s and 1960s, the freedom riders, were young students like you who got in cars and drove to the South, the belly of the beast, and signed up young blacks for voting rights. That is courage. That's where I draw my inspiration. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Malcolm X all knew how they would die. All knew they would die. They did die. They were at a level our movement has yet to reach. Someday we might reach that level, and then we will be in a real war. Now, to address your other questions, I will get to them. We are in a war. It has been largely undeclared against animals, and it is a one-sided war. I don't want peace, I want war, because we will not win this fight peacefully. We will not win this fight peacefully, so I want a war. I want a two-sided war. Let me tell you what is at stake, and maybe you'll understand better. In South Africa and in Australia, there is armed struggle over animals. Do you know that? The attack on rhinoceri, and elephants is so intense they have to defend them with armies and weapons. That is a war. Now, if you ask a question, don't turn your back on me. If you want an answer, then look at me. We are in the beginning of a very serious struggle over species extinction. It will escalate. And you work at the level you're comfortable working at, and others will do the same. So a war has enemies, and if you understand your enemy, you can never be seduced into thinking your enemy is your friend. I will never be seduced into thinking the meat industry is my friend. I will never be seduced into thinking I can work with them and cooperate with them for the animal. I will never love my enemy. If I am hit on one cheek, I will strike their cheek twice. We are at war with corporation. People say, oh, well, if we're at war and we have enemies, then Aunt Hilda has to be killed because she eats meat in our family. No, Aunt Hilda is not the enemy. ConAgra is the enemy. ConAgra, Monsanto, ExxonMobil, Smith Foods, giant agribusiness is the enemy. We have nothing in common with them. They have no humanity. They cannot be stopped through persuasion or kindness or love or civil passive disobedience. Now, I'm sorry about the word Holocaust, and I understand what country I'm in. No people have a monopoly on suffering. No people have ever suffered as great as animals suffer. One Holocaust ended. Another continues. The oldest war, the oldest Holocaust continues. It grows larger and wider in scale and scope. 60 billion animals a year are killed for food consumption. 60 billion. Now, actually, the word Holocaust came from animals, not from Jews. Holocaust means burnt offering. Holocaust refers first to animal sacrifice. So, although the Holocaust has come to mean something else, it originally meant animal sacrifice. So, although the word offends some people, I apologize. It is not my intent to offend. I also insist that animals are slaves. And in the United States, you offend African Americans when you talk about animal slavery. So if I want to build bridges with American blacks, I would be very careful with that term under normal circumstances. But I insist that animals fit the definition of slaves. They are held captive. They are held as captives. They are held against their will. They are forced to produce a product or to work or to labor for a slave owner. So I am not a person to use euphemism. I call it the way I see it. I see a war, I see a Holocaust, and I see slavery on the greatest scale ever in history. And if you take these words away from me, then you sanitize the horror and the scale and the magnitude of what is happening.
Eine kleine ergänzende Frage. Du hast vorhin gesagt, dass wir von den Unis weggehen sollen und mehr in die sozialen Brennpunkte, in Flüchtlingsgruppen und. Aber ich bin der Meinung, dass wir ausreichend auch die Universitäten nicht vernachlässigen dürfen, weil das ist eigentlich unser wichtigster, zumindest meiner Meinung nach, wichtigster Ansatzpunkt, auch Tierschutz im Unterricht. Und jede Arbeit von uns ist letztendlich politisch. Also bitte nicht, und da widerspreche ich dir, die Unis nicht vernachlässigen. Das ist ja gerade auch deine Arbeit, die du machst. Und die zweite und letzte Frage von mir, kannst du in irgendwelcher Form, wir wissen alle, dass die tierliche Szene, egal in welchem Land, relativ zerrissen ist, und entsetzlich zerrissen ist, geschwächt ist, in irgendwelcher Form integrativ in deiner Position, in deinen Reisen in Europa, in Amerika, wo auch immer, tätig sein.
Well, I'm not opposed to leafleting on college campuses. I'm opposed to only leafleting on college campuses, because that is pretty much what vegan outreach is limited to. That's very comfortable and very safe. We're not reaching the left, we're not reaching the progressives, we're not reaching the poor, we're not reaching people of color. I understand that college campuses are diverse and have many different people, but this is not the same as going into the inner cities and really trying to mobilize a large group of oppressed people. And moreover, a very simple point, tactically. Here is how people leaflet. Leaflet? That doesn't encourage conversation. Better to have a table with free vegan food, and people come, and then you have a chance to talk to them. You're not just going, leaflet? If you're going to hand out leaflets, table instead of that. Very simple point.
I was wondering how you bring those different groups together, because you know that veganism is often found in little bubble places. You know, there are different groups working on their own. So how do you think, is it possible to find a way of interaction in all the different groups fighting for veganism?
All the different groups, like Alliance. Let me tell you something. It's very complicated, but I'll put it very simply. I believe that the first oppression in history was human over animal. And this created the model for all oppressions to come, nearly all. Because when we came to define what is human, we define that opposed to what is non-human or the animal. And we said they do not have language, they do not have rationality, and we do. So the beings that are most superior on the planet have language and rationality, and that is the human being. Aristotle was the first philosopher to make this into a full-fledged theory. So when we say that women are inferior to men, we say they are not as rational as men. When we say people of color or islanders or African people are superior to white Europeans or are inferior to white Europeans, we say they are savages, beasts, and they lack rationality. There is never a war or battle without reducing the enemy to an animal. So before sword play, there is always word play. We call our enemy rats, vermin, mice, any imaginable animal, dogs. Then they are no longer human. Then they are only animals. And so now we have no moral obligation and we can kill them as we please. So all these oppressions are interconnected, and in fact, I believe they stem from speciesism. Imagine if there was not speciesism. Would we have racism? Would we have sexism? Maybe not. And there are so many ways in which the world is connected. What we do to the animals, we do to ourselves. If we want to stop the destruction of the rainforest, if we want to stop bush meat, the killing of monkeys for bush meat, we have to deal with class, the class issue. People do that because they're poor. If we want to save more animals, if we want to save the habitat, we have to reduce the population. If we want to reduce the population, we have to give women more rights. Because it is proven as a sociological fact that where women are educated, they have less children. So there is a direct connection between women's rights, population problem, habitat, and species extinction. So if we could get different groups to see that we cannot win our single battles without winning the battles of all, we would move far. Really, there's just one problem in the world, that's hierarchy. Hierarchy is a structure of power of one group over another, and all hierarchies are interrelated. So we'll take one more question, and I'll be around for any conversation afterwards, okay?
Ich habe jetzt mal eine ganz komische Frage. Wenn es jetzt keine Tiere mehr geht und sie sterben ja eh, weil der Mensch sie vernichtet, wäre der Mensch in der Lage, den Menschen zu quälen, zu essen? Das ist eine ganz...
Well, let us start with killing humanity first. Because humanity is an animal, and if all animals are going to die, humanity will die. So let's start with killing humanity, and then the earth can heal. It is a fact that all species die, but we are in the 6th great extinction crisis in the history of the planet now. All 5 were caused by nature. This one is caused by us. This is not natural. This is not natural. What I'm hearing is you are legitimating killing as something natural, as something inevitable. Again, species are dying now 1,000 to 10,000 times the rate of natural extinction. They're dying because we are overpopulating, destroying their habitat, and directly killing them. And you can take one of two attitudes. You can say life means nothing, and it's acceptable for any and all life to die. Or you can say life is sacred, and it is a tragedy when any individual or any species dies. In the grand scale of things, all species will die, but after every extinction crisis, biodiversity has increased. So let's imagine that the human species will not last another century. If that's the case, and the Earth is only middle-aged, there is millions of years or billions of years for evolution to regenerate. Humans will be gone, tigers might be gone, gorillas might be gone, but there will be fantastic new animals on this planet. So, yes, in the grand scale of things, all things come into being and all things pass away. But I will fight for the tiger and the gorilla and the chimpanzee. I will fight for every form of life that does not have to die. Because to me, life has value, and extinction is forever. So a world without cheetahs, a world without panda bears, a world without even bluefish tuna. This is a world lesser in value, less in biodiversity. Ecosystems become weaker. This is a sadder world. I don't want that world. I want to fight for what we can fight for. And to me, now I'm not fighting for humans anymore. I'm really fighting to save what's left of this planet, because I'm not sure humans can make it. This is the time, this is the moment, the time is now, do or die now. It's not tomorrow, it's not 10 years, the crisis is now. We either act decisively or we lose the moment and we will die. You know the movie Mad Max? Yeah. Mad Max, we will go with a whimper or a bang. If we go with a whimper, our future might look like Mad Max. You have maybe a few thousand people left in the world, and they're fighting a bloody war for water or oil. That's no life at all.